They're a matched pair, so.
Yeah, and having them be already
take him out if you want.
connected. You sure?
Yeah. Just make sure he doesn't run out.
Yeah, because he might want to. Hi, buddy. Hey, hey, hey. A little bit ahead. There you go. Yeah, look at you. He's equinely and free. Oh, look at how long and slim he is. He's so soft. He's still.
Yeah, he's biting right now.
Oh, it's because he's teething. He's like a baby, like kid babies. When their teeth come in, their teeth hurt, so they bite.
It's so cool that you bring your kid.
Usually he only bites in the morning.
Yeah, it's just because
I mean, it's 7.
his gums hurt, so he bites. He bites until his teeth comes in, and then once his big people teeth come in, then he won't bite anymore. Then he'll do something else. Don't worry. He'll probably, we call it making bread. When they need, call that making biscuits. I'll make biscuits instead. Yeah. Come here.
It is Friday, October 10th. Thank you for coming to our monthly story night at CFTA. Please give yourselves a round of applause. I'm sure you've kept those seats warm and your mouths warmed up as well. Put those hands together for your host this evening, Michael Derbecker.
Good evening and greetings and salutations. It's too what?
Light.
It's too light.
Yes.
Okay, am I that horrible to look at that I should be less illuminated?
You're bright.
You would.
We should be dark. We fixed it.
Okay, now since I only hear a disembodied voice and I can't see you, I'm assuming the lights have gone down.
Right?
First and foremost, good evening across the board. Thank you everybody who is here tonight. And whoever's watching this streaming, hopefully a couple of people in Europe, and you know who you are. Hi, how are you, Cross? Okay, thank you everybody for being here. I have noticed watching recordings of these sessions that I always introduce in the same way, and I am desperate to get away to do something slightly different. But if it ain't broke, don't fix it. So a couple of things first. Everyone who's here, I would like you to look to my deliberate right, where there are some delightful refreshments that you are welcome to get anytime during the session. Tonight there's actually pizza as well, so there are 2 slices for $5. For everybody who's going to perform, thank you for performing. I think it's amazing that we've gotten some people who've done it twice tonight and more than twice, so I always enjoy that. You can watch this on YouTube, and if you want to own your own recording of your own bit, please talk to Dexter over there, because you can buy a recording for $10. There are t-shirts available at the back over here, and there are a couple of different versions over there. I'm just not wearing my CFTA t-shirt today because, quite frankly, I forgot. I know, I have gray hair, I'm old. I'm quite used to this at this point. And it's great because I'm old, I don't really remember. Is that the housekeeping out of the way? Okay, that is the housekeeping out of the way. The hopelessly sentimental and kind of artsy bit comes next. I've been doing this for almost a year now. It's October. I think the first event I did was last November. Dex? So I want to thank Dex and George and Jake for, and I'm not going to say what I always say, which was thanks for encouraging my behavior, which I stole from Bobcat Goldthwait. So if he's watching this, I do apologize. Thank you for letting me do this. Thank you for encouraging storytelling across the board, because it's kind of a weird niche thing to do. It is not stand-up, and it's not quite theater. It's something between the two. So anyone who likes to do it, and you get the thrill out of it, I am delighted that you're here. Yeah, I hear some affirmative noises. Give yourself a hand. You haven't even been on stage yet, and you've gotten applause. Some of it was self-induced, but that's okay. How many people here, just a show of hands, have done the things that self-induced that make them feel good? Not the one you're thinking of. Although if you want to tell me about that later, maybe over a drink, a nice cup of coffee, a little music. Okay. let's move on. Just to give you a very brief rundown of myself, just for the record, if no one knows, I started doing storytelling events in Toronto almost 12 years ago. I'm looking at Brian, who I have performed with in Toronto.
Sounds right.
Yeah, that sounds about right. I was an actor at one point and stopped doing it for over a decade for a bunch of reasons, but I've always liked the form, and I always was interested by people who could hold an audience simply by standing in front of them and talking. It is a terrifying thing to do, and it's also kind of irresistible if you've got the mindset. So I'm kind of saying that anybody here is going to perform tonight. If you're terrified, that's good. Yeah, it's wonderful, because you're kind of jumping into a pool and proving to people that you can swim. Another show of hands. Anybody here swim? Metaphorically, physically, literally? Does anyone care for a mint? I don't have any mints. All that said, thank you for being here. Thank you for encouraging this thing as a form. And I'm going to talk about the first performer. So with that in mind, I have a book here, because I can read. The first person who's coming up, I saw a couple of months ago, and we have a very distant, tenuous connection, because I knew where she was born, or where she used to live. My father grew up in a very small town, kind of northeast of here. He grew up in a place called Neustadt, or Neustadt, if you want to be German about it. That is how they pronounce it, okay? Yeah, I do not speak German. My dad spoke it very, very occasionally. This is kind of in the middle of nowhere, and on the way from Toronto to the middle of nowhere, you pass 3 or 4 other towns that are, occasionally charming, but in the middle of nowhere. And she is from the middle of nowhere that I happen to know because it had a really good diner that used to have pictures of fatal car crashes in it. Did I make that up, or do you remember this?
No, I do remember that.
Okay, I'm not crazy.
I do remember that.
This is one of my weirder childhood memories. We're going to go see Grandma, and she's wonderful. I mean, she's going to make cookies, and we're going to stop for lunch. Oh, look, I think 2 people died in that one. And that truck, it went right through a wall. Michael, you can't live through that, Michael. My family is a bit weird in that area. Regardless, she came in at random and told a story, and I'm delighted to have her back, ladies and gentlemen. Shelley.
Sorry, guys. No script this time, but my hair's more controlled, so I'm feeling better about this time. So, my name is Shelley. A bit of a story. I understood we were going to do a spooky component, but this is the spookiest I can get. About 14 years ago, I had a calamitous accident with my foot, and I was sort of thrown out of the way of all of our social service nets. So I became a part of the black market. And my black market jobs sometimes became very interesting. So this is the story of the time I worked for 2 months at a funeral home. And I was called by a friend. He said, I need someone to help me sand 2,000 spindles. And I was like, no way, you're joking me. And apparently these spindles from this funeral home had been soaked in salt on a boat from China, and the paint wouldn't adhere. So we were talking stripping the paint, basically sealing the foam, and then covering it back up. But when you're working at a funeral home, it's just such a different ambiance than most other businesses. And so we became very, I would say maybe matter of fact about what was happening at the business, because we would see all kinds of things happen that usually you don't see as a customer. You don't see grandma being rolled in on a body bag. You don't see that. And we found it was really a challenge because we were spray painting. So we had to cover everything up with plastic and spray paint. But as soon as there was wind that there might be a funeral, then we had to rip it all down. So we started joking around. It wasn't the weather we were worried about. We called it cloudy with funerals. the funeral home director come out, so-and-so's Aunt Edna doesn't look like she's going to make it through the night. You got to tear this all down. We got to have a funeral here tomorrow. And we're like, okay, no problem. We rip it all down, get Aunt Edna buried and gone, and then we'd put it all back up again, right? And you started to see how people perceive death. And sometimes, it was sad. I mean, one day they came in with the minivan, and it was a very, very small body bag. And we were like, oh my God, it's a child. And it turned out, no, this woman had lived in a high rise. She had fallen down and died in the parking garage of her building. And they could not find her family. So she sat in the morgue for 6 months. No one claimed her. No one knew who she was. No one knew that she was dead. And I thought, oh my God, like of all the horrible things is to die without anyone knowing that you're dead, And it turned out that the city, I don't know about this city, if they do it, they probably do. They would take turns between the Catholic funeral homes and the Protestant funeral homes. They take turns burying the indigent. And she was one of the ones that the Ontario Works made sure she was cremated and that she was buried. They never did find her family, apparently. So that was one of the sadder occasions that we watched as we were sanding spindles for months in between funerals. Funnier things happened. One day there was a woman sitting in the parking lot. Her husband went in and paying a bill for someone. And suddenly she jumps out of her minivan and goes screaming through the parking lot. And she's standing in the parking lot on the sidewalk, smoking, power smoking. And we're like, are you okay, ma'am? Well, if you sit in a funeral home parking lot too long, the devil will come and get you and take you before your time. And we're like, oh, okay, sure. But probably the funniest time as working at the funeral home was the day that we had to do the majority of the spray painting. So of course we're out there being health and safety. We're all wrapped up in the white jackets and the air masks on, and we're running around with tape and everything. And this high school student stops, stares at us, starts screaming, aliens, and then runs down the street. And we're just like, what the hell was that? So, I mean, when you've seen that happen, you just get so used to, oh, this is where the morgue is, and this is where they're taking them, and every day we parked our cans of paint beside what we called the Elvis, which was the world's biggest casket I've ever seen. Like 2 people could have sat in the front of it and drove it down the street. It was so honking big. I said to the funeral home, are you not afraid that this is going to fall through the floor? And he's like, oh, no, it's reinforced on that side. It had to have, I don't even know how many people would have taken to lift the silly thing up. It must have been a $10,000 casket. It was massive. But I guess the one thing that I learned, and it's not really a new learning for me because it's happened to me recently, is that every single one of us are dying, And you don't know when your time clock is. You don't know if it's next week, tomorrow, or 20 years from now. So, as the girl who thought we were aliens thought, run screaming and then start laughing.
Thank you. Please give it up again for Shelley. If I might go aside for a moment, where was the funeral home, if I could be so bold as to ask?
It was O'Neill's Funeral Home in London, Ontario.
In London? Okay, thank God. Because I'm not convinced we're not distantly related. My dad worked at Hammer's Funeral Home in Newstead to put himself through university in McMaster. So I've got this bizarre, even before I moved here, I had this bizarre tangent attachment to Hamilton. But yeah, he told me some really interesting stories about, nothing scary, but just about people having weird assumptions about funeral homes and acting strangely. He also had that bizarre, kind of dignified, hands behind your back, looking deeply sympathetic. Whenever he went to a funeral, people would say, do you work here? I said, no, I'm just attending. It's a weird life. Thank you for telling that story. That was genuinely freaky. Please come back and be freaky anytime you want. I don't say that particularly, since I've been married, I don't say that very often, but moving on. The next person is coming up. I asked a couple minutes ago, I said, I would like to introduce you with something. What should I say? And he said, well, aggressively handsome. Aggressively, or was it intensely handsome? It was one of the two. And I said, well, of course. That goes without saying. He is going to, can I tell them what you're going to talk about? Sure. He's going to talk about being in Vietnam. So I don't believe he was a soldier at any time. I've seen The Deer Hunter and Apocalypse Now and so on. I think this is more on a vacation basis, but if we're lucky, maybe it isn't. Maybe he's a member of the CIA, and he's just come to Canada to defect to get away from Trump. It's not boring, it's calmer. It means he's not a fugitive from justice. Are you a fugitive from justice? I will not tell.
I'm going to go with incredibly handsome.
Incredibly handsome. Ladies and gentlemen, he has been here before. I'm very happy he's back. The incredibly handsome Frank.
I am actually quite modest, so it was nice of him to recognize how handsome I am. This is my third time here, and before I start to tell you about my first tour of NAM, I want to tell you why I am here. Excuse me for one second. I do believe it's important to get out of your comfort zone, and believe me, I am out of my comfort zone. I first of all would like to say that I feel like an amateur in a room of professionals, because I've been here 3 times and I'm so impressed with the stories and knowledge and that from the people that are here again tonight. So that is a compliment. And the other reason that I am here is because I want to get good at this. I think it's very important to have a voice, tell stories, and pass on to different generations. I'm not sure if you know that the indigenous people are storytellers, and that's how they have traditionally learned and shared knowledge. So, with that being said, I'm going to tell you a little bit about my trip to Vietnam this past summer. In March of this year, my son, who's living in Dubai, called me and said, hey, Dad, how about we meet in Vietnam and do a bike tour? Now, I am a cyclist, and I do ride about 3 times a week. And to do 100 kilometers is not really an issue for me, but it's much different in Vietnam for 3 reasons. It's a very hilly country, and it's very hot, and the trip involved 100 kilometers 6 days in a row. So very challenging, and I started preparing for it in March, and I was ready for it when I got there in July. But I want to tell you a little bit about the history of Vietnam and why it was so appealing for me to go there. I grew up in the 60s and 70s, and Vietnam was the story on TV. It was the story of war. And my family that lived in the United States had 2 young, my cousins that were older than me, and they actually were drafted. That means they got a draft number. And they were Canadian and American citizens, and they got a draft number, my oldest cousin. And with a draft number, it's a lottery system. So your draft number changes all the time, but it works down until your number comes up, and then you're drafted. But they change it all the time so that people don't flee. But my cousin did flee. He came back to Canada, and it broke my aunt's heart. And that we call collateral damage. In war, collateral damage is the people that catch bullets that weren't meant for them, but really, because of our warring world, the collateral damage affects everyone. the United States has a memorial for 50,000 dead soldiers. It's in Washington. And you can imagine the collateral damage that has caused. But in Vietnam, I learned that 3 million people died. 3 million South Vietnamese and North Vietnamese. So a country that was fighting against itself. Anyway, as it would happen, our trip started in the North Vietnamese capital of Hanoi. And I spent a day there with my son checking out the city. And the second day included a tour of the city. And I was terribly lucky to have a tour, a bicycle tour guide that was very knowledgeable. He was only 30 years old, so he wasn't even alive when the Vietnam War started. But when I got there, he wanted to know where we were from, and he was glad that I wasn't from the United States, and that I didn't support war, and he felt free to give me his opinion. He was from the South, but he was very knowledgeable. He said the Vietnam War split the Vietnamese like the Republicans and the Democrats in the United States. So family members don't talk to each other, and he believes that the North, who technically won the war, overtaxed the South to support the whole country. So very lucky that it was the last bicycle tour of the season, and it could accommodate up to 9 people, but this particular tour only had 2 people, my son and I. So we had a personal tour guide and a personal support vehicle, and we started off just outside of Hanoi, and we traveled down the Ho Chi Minh Trail. The Ho Chi Minh Trail is the route that the weapons came from the North Vietnamese to the central and south of Vietnam to fight the war. So Vietnam is a big S-shaped country. The north is closest to China, and the weapons came from the Soviet Union. And the Vietnamese were very good at jungle warfare because in history, they have beaten the Chinese in war, they had beaten the Spanish, they had beaten the French, and they were about to beat the Americans with this tactic of guerrilla warfare. They don't call it the Vietnamese War, the Vietnam War, they call it the American War. So off we start on the bike trip, and the challenging part is the heat. 35 degrees with a humidex of 47. On a ride here in Ontario, I drink about 2 500 milliliter bottles, maybe 3. In Vietnam, I was drinking 12 a day. So very challenging. And the first day, we had to do a mountain cross. 2 hours of incline, which took everything I had. And our guide told us that he was glad we made it, but day 5 would be the worst, and I wish he hadn't said that. So one of the interesting things about traveling through Vietnam is, especially the north, is that the Americans dropped as much tonnage of bombs as were dropped in the Second World War. And the countryside is pockmarked with the holes from dropping bombs. The Ho Chi Minh Trail itself, although it's paved now, was just a dirt trail. And every night the trail was bombed, and every day the trail was bombed, and every night the villagers put the trail back together again. At the end of the trail, the weapons were stored in caves, and some people lived in the caves for up to 6 years. 36 people were actually born in those caves, 6 of which are still alive today. damage from the weapons in a jungle setting, the scars are still there because the bombs would hit the mountains and the vegetation wouldn't grow back. The one thing we've all heard of as part of trauma is PTSD, and the Vietnamese also suffer from PTSD. I didn't see this, but apparently older men in their uniforms can be seen walking the Ho Chi Minh Trail, saying that they have to get back to their comrades, to their fighting partners. So, Vietnam itself is a communist country, but it does have landlords. So you can own your building, but you don't own the land, and the wealthiest people are the landlords in the country. So it's not really true communist country, a country that looks after everyone. If you own a farm, your education is not paid for. So it's an interesting contrast. But I just want to tell you one more thing. It's a cheap holiday once you get there, and the people are lovely, and they work long hours, sun up to sundown. And one more thing. Thanks again for listening to me. I hope there was some interesting facts there that you went with.
How much weight did you lose?
So I had a very busy summer. Last time I was here, I spoke about my canoeing trip. So I did Vietnam, then I did a canoeing trip, and then another bicycle trip, and I lost 10 pounds. Anyway, thank you for listening to me.
One more time for Frank, please. That was incredible. I know very, very few people have went to Vietnam. One of the few I know was actually a UK citizen. When you were there, did you go to any of the museums of the warfare tactics? Apparently that is something else, where they'll show you traps that they wanted soldiers to walk over. They weren't intended to kill all the time. They were usually intended to damage. So, you'd walk over a log and you'd find yourself suddenly 3 feet underground and your feet would be impaled and stuff like that. And they said the museum, half of the people there would be giddy. And they were all tourists going, oh, this didn't actually happen, did it? And the other ones are going, yeah, I remember when this happened. I remember this. So I think that's fascinating. Twice. So first you told us about canoes, now about Vietnam. Thank you for coming back. I just got one more time, please, for Frank. And I'm sorry if I rushed you off the stage. Something I forgot to say at the start of this. There is a little stoplight over there with red, yellow, and green. I'm trying to keep stories around 8 minutes, 9 minutes long, so keep an eye on that. If I end up at the back of the theater doing this, please wrap up your story. And I should have said that at the start. They're doing this for stand-up primarily. I don't do stand-up, I just watch it, and I never see that when I'm watching it. So keep that in mind. Next person who's coming up is attached to, on some level, Frank. Is that a fair thing to say? Or has a certain affiliation?
So archaic.
Attached is so fond of?
Like aggressively handsome men.
She is one of the women who could not resist an aggressively attractive man. And she also has been here before. And here she is, ladies and gentlemen, Amy. Thank you.
I can't do two things at once. Ooh, I really think I'm sure. I am sure. It's okay. I'm sure it was probably fine before. It just was being. Hello. Ooh. Hi there. How's everybody doing tonight? Good, good. It's so many people. I wrote this story a long time ago. I met a woman at a play date with my kids, and she told me this story about how she had to leave the country in the middle of the night, and they were only allowed to pack one bag. And then I went home and thought about it all. So here we go. It's called Leaving. Aisha went home to pack their suitcases. Each person was allowed only one small overnight bag. The driver had met with them and explained the details. Do not look anyone in the eyes. Keep your heads covered. Bring cash. And do not speak unless spoken to. Aisha tried to decide what to put in these cases. What would they need for the rest of their lives? She put in the oil painting her mother made, but then swapped it out for a jacket. Her wedding photo went in, but she took it out in exchange for a picture of her grandparents. Underwear beat socks, but socks beat hat. I'm scared. How can I possibly bring children into this nightmare, Aisha had asked. Things will get better, Khaled had said, but they didn't get better. And soon, even Khaled had to admit that Iraq might never be the same again. We will leave, he said. Aisha had been waiting to hear these words for months. She knew not to press on. Time had taught her to plant a seed and sit back and wait. If she pushed, he would resist. This was Khaled's way. She looked around at all the items on the shelves and in the drawers. It all seemed insignificant. There were so many things. Books they'd already read, movies that had been watched, clothes that didn't even fit, and so many knickknacks. Aisha and Khaled didn't know where they would go after they made it to Jordan. They were allowed to stay for only 3 months, and they were not authorized to work. The one thing she knew, they could no longer stay in Baghdad. Since Saddam's army had invaded Kuwait, chaos had set in. Gangs had taken over parts of the city, and looting and crime were rampant. And there was some ambulance there. She had wanted to have children, but it was no place to raise kids. She busied herself with packing and dreaming of their new life as the radio blared on in the background. We will overcome this. We are fierce warriors. Allah is on our side. Kuwait is rightfully ours. It was the British that took Kuwait from us, and now these infidels are living like kings while we exist like beggars. The Kuwaiti people have stolen our land, our riches, and now they are stealing from us again. It is true. They are slant drilling in the Rumelia field. I have seen this. Aisha turned the radio off. Toothbrush beat deodorant. It was getting easier. Her eyes fixed on the beautiful jewelry box Khaled had bought her for their first anniversary. It was marble with an inlaid picture on the lid. Tiny marble shards made up an image of a gray heron. She picked it up and rubbed its smooth surface with her fingers. Aisha set the elegant box back on the dresser and placed her hairbrush in the suitcase. She repeated an old Arabic proverb, close the door from which the wind blows and be calm.
That was very unexpected. Amy, please give her one more time. Can I ask, where did that come from?
I told you, I met a woman that told me how she escaped.
I know, but what compelled you to tell the story?
It was just she kind of told me a little bit about how hard it was to pack a suitcase, and then I just went home and thought about how hard that would be to pack one suitcase.
That's remarkable. I mean, especially whenever something incredibly momentous happens, sometimes your brain can't deal with it, and you remember the minutia. You know, everything has changed right now, and for some reason I remember packing my suitcase in a particular way. Yeah, it's an important thing to do, but in addition to everything else, it's something you can control. So I thought that was really affecting. Thank you for telling that story. And as usual, come back anytime, please. Okay, one more time, please. The next person I know, and I've introduced a bunch of different times, and he is one of the fixtures here. Every time he tells a story, he will explain where it's coming from, what is in his head at the moment, and various aspects of his life. He does theme and variation on living and why he wants to tell a story and what is happening in his head at the time. He can be funny, he can be serious. I have no idea what he's going to do tonight. Here he is. George.
Fuck, that puts a lot of pressure on me. Hey guys, why did the chicken cross the road? No, true. Like, thank you for that intro, Mike. I think wow, thank you. Like, I don't deserve all of that praise. Thank you. It's true, but I like doing whatever I'm feeling in the moment. I like to talk about that. And today, literally, driving here, because I had a conversation with my wife and it just kept, simmering in my head. I realized today that I lost my ability to be negative. I know. Like, how did you do it? I know, stay positive. No, it's not, none of those. But no, I lost my ability to be negative because I don't want it to seem like I'm barking up the same tree every time, but it's because of Canada and being in Canada and what it means to me. But I kind of realized here that because, and I love that you mentioned the Gulf War because that's what I lived. I lived in that region, and it's such a hostile place to be for you as a human, as a business owner, as just a person from a different faith or a different skin color, whatever. It's so difficult to be there that I used to walk around thinking the world is hostile. So even a stroll in the park, if you can find one there, would be something that I have to think about because what could go wrong on the way there? And coming to Canada has really showed me that there's a different breed of people that exist who just wants to be happy, spread happiness, and just, but let's all be respectful of each other. And that's the people I'm meeting here. And that's not just one type of people. Like every person I meet in Canada has a deep, full impact on me and becomes the thing I obsess about all day. CFTA was one of them. And I mean this from the bottom of my heart. Just walking on the street and the lady up there who makes the sandwiches, she already knows me coming in, and she's like, hey, you want your usual chicken banh mi, or Dex calls it fart sandwich? But this has breeded in my head a colony of thoughts that, relax, go out in the world, nothing can go wrong. Of course, you can still get stabbed in Hamilton or robbed at gunpoint, but even that is not something for me to worry about unless if it happens. And it's all because I'm here and I'm existing among these people. Now, the reason why I said I lost my ability to be negative is because the more I existed here, it's been a year and 6 months, 7 months, the more I realize like there's so much potential for everything, for myself, for my wife. My wife has no glass ceiling above her head, like, oh, you're a woman, you can only get to a certain... No, she has the opportunity to be whatever. So every time I think of those things, it kind of expands my brain. And the more my brain expands, the more I think, it's kind of stupid to believe only in one possible outcome, which is the bad thing. There are so many possibilities for everything around us that I believe it's kind of stupid to believe only in that one outcome where I'll lose everything or, oh, this will go to shit. But you're ignoring like 3 billion other possibilities that can happen. So being in Canada has, in a very sincere way, expanded my brain. And it's the people, it's the culture, it's the respect, it's how everybody gels together. And even when people have differences, you'll see them, they'll still try to gel somehow. Like, let's try to meet in the middle. That's an effort that nobody's willing to put out. And people here, it's like I would love to say it's a cultural agreement that everybody had. No, I think it's a geographical agreement because since month one I was here, that was my will as well. Like, okay, not everything has to go my way. Let me meet that person in the middle. And it kind of, I know it's very tribal and it's very fake when they say, oh, that's Canada and it's only that, right? But no, there's some truth behind that. Like, the moment I stepped in this country, I felt like that's how it should be. Like, I respect others, others respect me. And I abided to this contract without even willing to. And if I'm, yeah, and that, like, if that's one effect the country has on me, it showed me that there's not one way to think. And when I let go of my old ways, I kind of realized it's kind of stupid to believe only in the one possible outcome and ignore all the rest. And that ties back to something that's also been happening to me, and it's very personal. I'm not trying to force it on you, and we're not going to lock the doors and force you to read like verses. And that's very personal. That's my final line to you, and that's what my takeaway from all of this. The smarter I get because of everything I just described that happens here, the harder it's becoming for me to ignore God or to say, there is no God. And that's my personal take. You don't have to agree with it. But if you don't believe in God, take that and apply it to negativity itself and see that you actually can ignore it because it's so different and it's one out of so many possible outcomes. So I just want to say thank you. The fact that there's 10 people here who are willing to come support somebody's idea, that's the kind of stuff I'm talking about. And I'm very grateful for all of you here, for CFTA, for Mike. It's just such a pleasure to be around people who see me as people. So thank you for that.
One more time for George, please. That kind of, everything you just said kind of encapsulates what I like about storytelling is that you can drag something out of your subconscious that has affected you, and sometimes it comes out funny or bitter or sad or anything. 9 times out of 10, he will talk about what's in his head, and it comes out really positive. I know some people who are actually positive people, and they can't do that. So that's incredible. Thanks again for telling the story. Woo. The next person who's coming up, can I quote your last piece? Where'd he go? Amen. It is you. Can I quote your last piece quickly? He appeared last time I hosted with his brother. And his brother told this incredibly moving story about coming to Canada and dealing with hardships. And one of the first things this gentleman said when he came on, he said, I think it's wonderful that the spoiled one in the family comes on stage and talks about hardship. And he said it cuttingly and with a great deal of love at the same time. This gentleman is going to tell you everything about his life. He has performed here on numerous occasions. I've introduced him on numerous occasions. He is my favorite person to watch on video because his timing is perfect. For some reason, when he makes a point, whoever's running the switcher always switches at the right point, and I think he knows it instinctively. So, be good. Ladies and gentlemen, amen.
One more time for Mike, everyone. Now, Frank and Amy, your stories magically tie into what I have to say. So, watch. Good evening, everyone. I am a superhero. I know what you're thinking. What kind of stupid superhero tells you they're a superhero? What are your powers? Where's your costume? My power is that I love running. Running is my superpower. I can go run for hours, which normal people prefer not to do. I was talking to Dex one day, and he was telling me about how he found this trail right here in Hamilton, and I got so excited to go out and try it. It was like 10 kilometers in, and I loved every minute of it. Now, one more thing you need to know about me is that I've run races in so many countries. I've run in Malnitz, Austria. I've run in Kuwait, I lived there. Be quiet. I've run in Thailand. I've run races in Malaysia. I've run races in Bahrain. I've run races in the US. I've run races in Canada. And I lived in Kuwait, so I ran there a lot. But the one thing I'm most proud of that I did in Kuwait is this. So I was telling a story last time I was here about a friend of mine called Yusuf and how he had a running company and we were friends and then we were enemies and then we became brothers. He had an invitation-only race called Run Kuwait, where you run from the north to the south of Kuwait. And I'd been applying to join this race since it started, and of course, they never chose me. I blame racism. But then, fortune smiled upon me twice in 2017 when and I really need to be careful about the order I say these, when my son was born and when I got accepted to run this race. Now, unfortunately, those two things were conflicting. So even though I was selected to run this race, I almost had to give that up. But Yusuf wouldn't let me. He said, I'm sure you will find a way to do it. The race was going to happen in April. My son was born in April. My son was born on April 4th. It's very important to note the number 4. My son was born on April 4th. I did this race in Kuwait in February. Now, I didn't do it from north to south, so the shirt is a bit of a lie. But what I did was I worked the distances that the race is supposed to be done into my regular working week. So I would finish work at 4 p.m., and I would run 40 kilometers. And then I go home. And then I go to work the next day. And I run another 40 kilometers. And then I go home. And then the longest day was 85 kilometers. And I can tell you the most interesting stories about, because the day I chose to run it was Kuwait's Liberation Day. Amy, I lived in Kuwait, where your friend was telling you about Iraq. I lived through the Gulf War. And what they do to celebrate their independence and the end of that war is that they used to throw water balloons at each other on the longest stretch of road that is on the beach there, the Gulf Road. So I was running down that. I got bombarded with water balloons. And I can tell you the exact way that rubber smells in the heat of February because I was just like dying to get across. But now, that was one time that I did something that was, tremendous, 220 kilometers. Until I moved to Canada. And if some of you have Netflix, I highly encourage you to search for a series called Losers. You will see an episode called Lost in the Desert about a man who went to Morocco to take part in what is known as the toughest foot race on the planet, the Marathon des Sables. Believe it or not, people actually pay money to go run in the desert. You run over 6 days, and you need to carry your food on your back. They only give you 5 liters of water a day, and that's water you have to shower with, drink, cook your food with, all of it. And I signed up for that race. I signed up for the Marathon des Sables in 2026. It happens in April. This race started in 1986. And guess who else started in 1986? I will be celebrating turning 40 in the desert of Morocco. And what makes it even more interesting is that I am the fourth one of my friends to do this race. Yusuf was first, Muhammad al-Matar was second, Christine Kreta was third, I'm number 4. And when it comes to Egyptians who have done this race, look, I did my research because I'm all into data analytics. I pulled out every single person that ran this race from 1986 until 2025. Do you want to guess how many Egyptians have run the Marathon des Sables?
500? Oh, just your people. The ones you know.
You're number 4.
So I am number 4. So the way I see it is, I was meant to run this race in 2026. And on the other things about running that it puts you in very uncomfortable situations, I'll leave you with a laugh. I went to get a massage because I've been running so often that my legs hurt. But I'm not okay paying the prices that you guys pay here for massages because that's insane. So I went on the marketplace to find a device that would massage my legs. I found a person, and this person lived 500 meters from my house. So I go there, and of course I'm worried. I told my brother, the other brother, that this is where I'm going to be, here's the address, here's the mobile, here's the number, my session is for 1 hour, you call me 15 minutes afterwards. If I don't answer, call the police. And nothing tells you that this meeting is going to go awkwardly than when you walk into a stranger and the first thing they tell you is, please take off your clothes. You're definitely paying for something you should not be. Ladies and gentlemen, I've been Ayman Nassar. Thank you so much.
A gentleman never tells. One more time for Eamon, please. Two things. Firstly, I think that's incredibly brave. And secondly, you're crazy. In that order. But go for it. I think you can get an amazing story out of that. I can't follow that. That's just incredible, the idea of doing that. And happy 40th. Happy upcoming 40th, of course. I'm also celebrating my 40th birthday. I'm not having it. I'm past 40. I just celebrate the idea. Stay at home, drink, stare at the walls. That's another story. The next person I'm going to introduce is another person who's been here before and who will always have a special place in my heart as being one of the bus people, which I have to explain. 2 events. That's mine, excuse me. I'm back. Mental note, turn off the timer. The bus people. 2 events back, on kind of a rainy, miserable night, 2 people came in completely random. They hadn't looked at posters, they weren't involved in the storytelling scene, they had no motivation other than they got off a bus after a really mediocre meal at a restaurant I will not mention. Like, it's not terrible, it was kind of lukewarm and watery, it didn't taste great. And came in here and told an amazing story and had a great time. So the fact that they've come back is a very, very good thing. And I'm not going to introduce anything else other than for their second appearance, as far as I know, because I haven't seen them here before, Katie. Thank you.
Hello again, everybody. I was not prepared for all the heart-wrenching stories, so I'm going to do my best here, but I'm very, I absorb people's emotions, so here we go. So I wrote a story this time because you guys are all so amazing that I felt like I needed to step it up. I couldn't just tell, a little anecdotal story. So I went online and I found a site called Screencraft and found a prompt that is, A millennial who can't detach from technology is forced to go camping. So let's see what happens. I'm going to do my best. I have terrible dyslexia, so I can't just read you my story, gosh darn it. So I have written notes on my hands and can't go to the bathroom until I perform for you. And so here we go. All right, so Eric and Mark have invited you camping. Their partners, Aaron and Amanda, are sitting next to you in the vehicle. They're chit-chatting about their week and stresses at work because they just want to detox on this weekend. And you know that Eric and Mark are busy with navigation and driving, and you know if you talk to them, they're just going to talk about how amazing everything is and how great the scenery is going to be, and those leaves are changing color because it's fall, and they're just hanging on. You've just made it before the end of the season. But the thing is, you're kind of wondering what's happening with your squad, your team. And you can't check your phone because they won't let you bring it because you're detoxing too. And admittedly, as the scenery passes by the window, you can catch glimpses of this beautiful water. So you're kind of relaxing. And Eric informs you that this turn that you're gonna make is it. We're at the campsite. And as you get out, yeah, you know what? Despite the chilly breeze, it is cozy. In amongst the evergreens, and the ground is just covered in pine needles, and your guys are excited to set up camp. You're admittedly not the best at this. Everybody is very understanding, and you help out the best you can. It's already getting dark, so you sit down with the campfire, and as everyone starts to prepare the meal, you feel like you're part of some sort of 90s Saturday morning kids cartoon as you go collect branches for the fire. And Mark and Aaron have done a great job organizing the meal. So you're sitting down, they were making burgers, and as you begin to eat it, you're just feeling the crunch, the crisp of the burger. It's juicy, the cheese is melty, the bun is soft. You're in the moment. And then Amanda goes and gets the marshmallows. And you see that she has graham crackers and chocolate. And you just let the nostalgia roll over you and just feel warm and fuzzy. As you're toasting your marshmallow, you can see it become bubbly and golden, and you make your s'more, and it's just perfect. But as you're getting ready to head off to bed, Amanda reminds you not to forget your breathing exercises. Breathe for 4, hold for 7, and exhale slowly for 8. You smile and nod and climb into your small tent. There was discussion about some other arrangements, but you didn't want to make anything awkward, so you decided your personal space, you could just have the small tent. Climbing into your sleeping bag, it's not too chilly, but you're trying to clear your thoughts. But you keep thinking, man, I really always fall asleep to my favorite podcast. And the latest episode is out now, and I don't have that. But you plan for this. You have your breathing exercise. So you remind yourself to breathe for 1, 2, 3, 4, and hold. 1, 2, but there's a shadow at your tent entrance. Still holding for 4, and now there's a hand gliding the shadow towards you. And you're breathing in for 5, and you exhale quickly. It catches in your throat. It's raw feeling. You try again. Start over. Breathing in. 1, 2, 3, 4. Hold. There's the shadow again. Still holding. It's reaching out for you. Hold for 4. Hold for 5. Its fingers are almost touching you. You scooch a little bit. And you exhale. Okay. Again. 1, 2, 3, 4. And you hold. And the shadow appears again and reaches out for you. Your intrusive thoughts feel like slimy electric eels rolling on the Atlantic tide. All sharp rocks and pressure beating down again and again. Eventually, you notice that the night sounds have turned into small chirping birds and silence. So you get out of your tent and you go to check on your friends. They seem a little bluer than you expected, and nobody's waking up. And you just know in your gut what has happened. And the shadow has got them. And you know it's your fault because the shadow had always told you that it was you or them. So, before you know what you're doing, you're running. You're running into the woods, and it feels amazing. As all of the pressures from your life are just gone. There's nothing left but you and the movement and the crackling of frost under your feet. Thank you.
One more time for Katie. In terms of sense memory, that was amazing. Every time I've gone camping, there's always a moment where you're in the middle of nowhere, even if it's only 10 minutes away from a road, where you realize there's nothing around me. There's no electricity. I am at the mercy of the elements. Even if you're not really, you feel it. And I got that out of that story. So very cool. Thank you very much. Okay. Next person again is someone I have seen here and I've introduced here and has a great perspective on pretty much everything. I never know what he's going to say. I want to qualify that because I've introduced a bunch of people, different events where I introduce them as I do not know what they're going to say. That's not meant to be dismissive. I mean, that's actually one of the best compliments I can give anybody because you don't want to get stuck in a rut. You want to be someone who shows up and people think, okay, this is going to be A, and then you give them B, C, D, E, F, G, and so on. This gentleman does that, and the last time I hosted, he told a story that I thought was really moving. So he might do that tonight, or he might do dirty jokes. I don't know which. Either way, they're going to be worth your time. Ladies and gentlemen, Toshi.
Thank you so much, Mike. And I have to say, this is like one of the things I look forward to each month. So thanks so much for giving us this platform. So walking in here, I didn't know that I was gonna perform. I only came to listen and have fun. But then I remembered that I had this screenplay it's a story that I wrote in 2014. I've adapted it into a screenplay now, but I've not heard it out loud in my head. It's a 14-page story, but I will just read the half of it and probably come back and finish the other half next month. So the name of this story is Homecoming. Ada stood in a passage that connects the bedrooms to the sitting room. She's the type that thinks thoroughly of all her actions before taking them, be it the choice of course of study, a car, or what to order at a dinner, or assist, in this case, whether she should enter the sitting room. That damned sitting room. She was not so sure that the good memories that used to smile down from those frames in the sitting room will still be smiling when she gets in. Ada had not seen her father in 15 years. Her father had attended her grandfather's burial with her mother, but refused to come back to the United States with her. Her father said that he had to face his destiny at home in Nigeria. The role of chief priest is held by their family, and he was to take over from his late father. It was the tradition that every first child in their lineage would, at the father's death, become the chief priest. Ada was her father's first child too. At first, Ada, her mother, and her sister thought it was a joke, but when several months passed without her father coming back, they took it as a pure act of wickedness and the abandonment of his family, and worse still, as a mental illness. So tonight, Ada held the doorknob to the sitting room, waited for a few seconds to reassure herself of her readiness to hook up with the past. When she opened the door, the iron door squeaked like those rats she used to be very scared of as a kid. It was because of friction, but not to her. To Ada, it was the sign of evil that now resides in the house alongside her father. She finally gathered enough morale to continue this time travel. The dust that welcomed her spoke of years of non-human activity in the room. She banged the door behind her and let out some loud sneezes that must have awoken some sleeping spirits. She then reopened the door, used her left curved palm to protect her nose from the dust and her right hand to caress the wall in search of the light switch. To most people, that sitting room would be just another abandoned room in the house, but not to her. To Ada, this room held all the dreams of her family and the darkness that has turned them into nightmares. The switch was exactly where it was some 15 years ago. She flicked it on, not expecting that the light would come on. The light did come on. She heaved a huge sigh of relief, as if the light bulbs had dispelled the darkness that was cast on the house. But she was afraid of looking at those pictures that hung on the wall and seeing a sad and scared 9-year-old Ada pictured in her elementary school graduation gown. When she finally looked up, everything was still normal. 9-year-old Ada was still grinning in the arms of her smiling mother. Kate, her sister, stood in the other frame, a crying toddler. Ada vaguely remembers the day that picture was taken of Kate. Kate was scared of the camera's flash and kept on crying, trying to crawl away whenever the camera faced her. The photographer had waited for a perfect shot for at least 30 minutes before their father told him to take the shots that way. Everything in the room was the same as they were when she was a kid, apart from the odor. The fresh dew air freshener that used to adorn the sitting room had made way for an odor caused by the decay of rats' carcasses. Among all those picture frames, there was one which struck her the most. Her dad, showing off his PhD certificate with one hand while holding her mother's waist with the other. That was the picture that defines the father that she used to know. Her father loved education so much, one would think he preferred it to his family. Yet, he dedicated so much time to his family, one would wonder whether he still had time for his career. Those two were the two things that mattered to her father and the most, and that he had thought others should matter to the most to every man. Her father's psychology book stood at the other end of the library, which her father had declared out of bounds for both Ada and her sister. When little Ada was done reading all the novels in the first shelf, she had gone to the other shelf to pick up one psychology book. She was too short to reach the book, so she climbed the shelf to get it, and she fell with the shelf. Her father dropped some of those books on the table where her hands could reach them, so she would not have to climb again. Those books still lay on the table now, neatly arranged. Ada took them and rearranged them on the shelf. As she turned to leave the room, she was startled by her father, who was standing at the door, wearing nothing but a grain, a white chalk drawn between his two sagged chests, which ran through his navel all the way down to his waist, and a yellow wrapper tied around his waist into a big, long horizontal knot in the front. Her father relived all those memories with her. "My daughter, I knew you would come back today," her father said in a melodic voice that Ada thought should be reserved for his idol-worshipping congregation and not for his daughter who has flown thousands of miles to visit him. There was also this hint of sadness in his voice that Ada did not understand. Ada was not going to give him the satisfaction of knowing that she came all the way down to Nigeria because she misses him. "No, I did not come back because of you. I spoke at a public lecture at University of Nigeria and only wanted to stop by and say hi before I go back." This was not a lie, but the only reason she accepted to deliver the lecture was because she wanted to visit her father. Thank you so much. We'll continue this some other day.
Thank you very much. One more time for Toshi, please. I'm going to beg you in public, come back and tell the other part of that story when you get the chance. That was very controlled and very, like in the best sense of the term, very dark. As you were reading it, I found myself looking around the details, trying to figure out where that was going to go. So thank you very much. I get to tell a story too. So here's my story, and it comes with. Let's put it this way. I want to do a demonstration. What is this? It's a can of beer. Okay, 2 points. Is this can open or closed? It's empty. No, it will be empty in the very near future. The moment it's open. This is a closed can of beer, yes? I'm going to offer this can of beer, which is cold, to anybody in this audience who, without looking at their phone, can tell me who David Hewlett is. David Hewlett. Poet? No.
The person you,
Anybody know?
the person you borrowed that phrase from.
Phrase from. That was Bobcat Goldthwait. It wasn't David Hewlett. Oh, come on. Anybody? Everybody. I'm just going to have to drink this myself. Dave Hewlett is a Canadian actor. Yeah. Come up here. Get your beer. You did retroact. Okay, no beer? I'll take the beer. Take the beer. Come up here and take the beer. A little retroactive.
Time is relative, my friend.
Time is relative. David Hewlett is a Canadian actor. I don't know him personally. He's a good actor. Did you ever see the movie Pin? Horror movie from the early 80s? He's in it. He's quite good. Cube. Sci-fi movie? Yeah. People know that one. He's in Cube. He's done a lot of work on Canadian film, Canadian TV. He was in Adam McGowan? I don't think so. He was in the Rise of the Planet of the Apes. Plays the pilot that dooms mankind. Among other things. He's a Canadian actor. Yeah, I don't know him personally. I used to. I was in a play with him, oh my God, almost 40 years ago. We were both understudies in a play in Toronto. It was a freaky version of Spring Awakening. Perfectly nice guy. We hung out while the play was on. We saw the movie Brazil together, Terry Gilliam's movie, so it tells you how old I am. Ran out of touch after the show, but I would run into him every so often. I'd see him, at plays, or I would just run into him in the street, and I'd say, "Hey, Dave, how are you?" He'd go, "Mike, how are you?" We would talk about movies for 5 minutes. I'd say, "Nice to see you." We'd walk away. I don't know him personally anymore. I just want to point this out, that I don't know him personally. The last time I talked to him, I think, was 1999, where I met him at random at an Orson Welles film in Toronto. Since 1999. And I have not talked to him. I have not received a message from him. I have not had a message from a third party on his behalf sent to me. I haven't reached out to him. I have not run into him in the street. I have no idea what he's doing with his life. So is it safe for me to say that I do not personally know David Hewlett? Yes. You all agree with this?
But if you saw him, you'd say he might. So you kind of know him.
Well, here's the thing. I think it's perfectly reasonable for me to say I do not know David Hewlett anymore, but I work with a woman who is convinced that I do. Among the other shows he was on Stargate Atlantis. This woman is a Stargate Atlantis freak. I didn't know this until she walked past my desk. I am looking at a bunch of photos that my sister has sent me. She sent me a photo of, it's a newspaper picture of the cast of that weird version of Spring Awakening. And I'm in the picture along with the rest of the cast. Dave Hewlett is like the row ahead of me. And I'm just kind of looking at it thinking, wow, man, I was young. I'd shaved my head for the play. I look weird. I look like a skinhead. This is ancient. I'm old, et cetera, et cetera. And she wanders by and goes, "Is that you?" I said, "Yeah, no, it was a million years ago. I was in a play." She looks at it and goes, "Oh, that's cool." Walks past, then comes back and says, "Is that David Hewlett?" I go, "Oh, yeah." And she looks at me and she says, quote, "You have a famous friend." I tell her what I've just told you. Nice enough guy, have not talked to him for decades, full stop. And she said, "Oh, well, you were both actors. I mean, actors always talk to each other, don't they? I mean, that's what happens." I love Stargate Atlantis. I love it. I have it. I bought a Blu-ray player so I could buy the Blu-ray set. Do you know how that technology works? Because it's amazing the technology they have in that show. Okay, it's special effects. It's all CGI. I know, but what if it was real? Okay, and I'm kind of smiling weakly. And she said, "So if I brought my Blu-rays in, he'd sign them, right?" But no, yeah, you can get in touch with him, can't you? No, I cannot get in touch with him. But you were both actors. Same thing. Decades ago, I have no idea what he's doing with his life, and she doesn't believe me. I'm trying to convince her of this, and she keeps walking past my desk from time to time saying, hey, have you talked to your buddy Dave recently?" No. No, I have not whatsoever. And I'm hoping this wears off, but it didn't. I am a tech writer. It's a very boring job. and she is a consultant. She's some type of planning consultant. I don't really know what she does. I know she really likes Stargate Atlantis. Around 2 weeks ago, we're at a meeting, and it's very boring, and someone has brought donuts, and somebody's brought coffee, and somebody pushes something in front of me at the table, and it is a box set of Stargate Atlantis and a FedEx return envelope and a pen. And to this entire meeting of around 15 people, she said, I just want everyone to know that we kind of have a celebrity here because Michael knows Dave Hewlett, who was on Stargate Atlantis, and he's going to get me this signed. I think she's nuts. I mean, very pleasantly, she's a nice woman, but I think she's kind of crazy. And what am I going to do? I want her to shut up. Eventually, I said something that I shouldn't have said. I said, you know what? He's probably on Twitter and Facebook. I mean, just like tweet him. Maybe you could talk to him or something like that. I didn't mean that. What I meant was, he's on Twitter, follow him. But I was dumb enough to say, you can talk to him. So around 3 days later, she wanders up to my desk, and she looks delighted. And she said, I just want you to know that I've gotten in touch with Dave through Facebook, and he says hi, and it's great. He's telling me all about the show. I am mortified. Like, I haven't spoken to this gentleman for decades. And now he thinks that I'm sending people to get his autograph, and I'm kind of horrified, and I do have an out. I lied to her a little, very little bit. I actually could get in touch with him if I wanted to. When I worked in software, I worked with a guy named Bill. Bill was, I think, a neighbor or lived on the same street with Dave. And they would have barbecues and stuff like this. All I know about is that he mentioned that once, and I said, oh yeah, I was in a play with him, nice guy. So I realized I could get in touch if I talked to Bill. And I don't want to do this, but I call Bill and I say, listen, the next time you talk to Dave, can you apologize on my behalf? Because this crazy woman tracked him down on Facebook, and God knows what she's saying to him, and I did not send her to him, and I'm mortified. Just please tell him I'm very, very sorry. Bill laughs. He goes, oh, yeah, okay, fine, I'll tell him. And 2 days later, he calls me back, and he goes, okay, two things. Firstly, I talked to Dave. He laughed his head off and said, don't worry about it. He doesn't think you're that kind of guy. And secondly, she never reached him. I mean, he is on Facebook, but he uses a different name. Okay. This is kind of weird. So I went on to Facebook. Do you know how many people identify themselves as Dave Hewlett on Facebook? Around 14. Do you know how many people identify themselves as specifically his character, with the photo on the profile on Facebook? Around 5. So she is talking to an imposter who is claiming to be Dave Hewlett, who, by the way, I don't know anymore. And I can't tell her this. Like, I know this. I can't tell her because if I tell her, she's going to know that I can actually reach him if I have to. So here's what I've done. I'm trying blackmail. The last time she wandered by my desk gleefully saying, oh, I talked to David all about Stargate Atlantis again, and he told me about how they were designing the sets, and I said, yeah, I've got a really funny story about him, but it's kind of embarrassing. Can you do me a favor? Can you tell him, we're supposed to have a reunion party from that play we were in? Yeah, he owes me $400 for that play, and you tell him if he doesn't send me the $400 through an email transfer, I'm going to tell his embarrassing secret to you. There has been no response yet. However, I just want to tell everybody here, if this works out the way I want it to, and if I blackmailed this imposter into giving me $400, the next event, I'm not only going to give away one beer, I'm going to give away beer to everybody who attends. Thank you very much for your time. One more time. I don't know David Hewlett anymore, but he's a nice guy. The gentleman I'm about to introduce, I do know, and I've known him for a frightening long amount of time at this point. We used to work together at a software company in Toronto that worked on video games. I was writing dialogue for games, and I became a tech writer to explain how to play them. He has been an artist and an animator, And he came to a few events that I was performing at in Toronto, and then he began to perform at those events. And he has brought himself all the way here tonight. I always love his stories, full stop. Ladies and gentlemen, Brian Terrio.
I'm going to talk a little bit about empathy, specifically about the differences between the United States and Canada. We went down to Disney World in Florida a long time ago. And my wife had gone off to do her shopping, and I was doing some shopping, and I found something that she would like. And I thought, well, this is rare. I can buy something that she'll definitely appreciate, and she's not going to know about it. Awesome. So I go, okay, where's the checkout? And I look, there's checkout is closed. And the next one, checkout is closed. They've got these kind of strange buildings that are all hollowed out on the inside. They look different on the outside, but it's all one great big room. But there's an empty checkout, nobody there, nobody there, nobody there. And then I see, oh, there's a big line of people. All right, I get in the line. I can see there's a checkout person at the end of it. And I wait. And I'm waiting like everybody else. And they're all, it's strange. It's kind of a communal think. They all start buzzing with each other. And what's going on? They're not really talking to anybody. They're just kind of talking to themselves. Well, why is this taking so long? This is crazy. And you can see the kind of the energy of the group getting nastier, kind of mean. And, you know, you can see a person pop out of the line, just throw their junk down on top of a display and then leave. Oh, okay. They're all getting kind of antsy. And you can see everybody kind of metronoming. They're moving their heads. You know, what's going on over there? Well, why is this taking so long? And it's just taking forever. And I can feel it. I can feel it building inside of me, that whole, you know, that justified anger. Like, what's going on? Why is this taking so long? And it grows in you. You feel kind of nasty. You get upset. You want to make a difference. You want to yell at somebody. Well, I was like two back from the checkout lady, and I'm watching her, and she is, you know, she's got her hair. You could tell it was done up nice when she started working, but you know, there's little wisps coming off, and they're kind of hanging in her face. She looks pretty haggard, and you can tell that she's sweating. There's something going on here, and it's scary. The person at the counter talking to her is just being vicious, you know, like she's responsible for Disney, and this is, you know, they pay a lot of money to stay here, and what's going on? This is, I don't appreciate this at all, and I'm going to complain to management, and this is, well, the woman's doing the checkout. She grabs the item. It's got a sticker on it. She types in the number by hand. And right below it is a great big barcode. So she types it in by hand, and then she grabs the next one, does the same thing, grabs the next one, does the same thing. I'm like, what the hell's going on here? Well, she processes that, and then the next person jumps in and says exactly the same thing to her. And she starts the whole thing with, I'm sorry, things with a computer are not working. I have to type in everything by hand. And it goes on and on and on, and the person just keeps lambasting her. Just, this is, I I don't think this is right, and you're not going to do, and if anything, I'm going to have you fired. This is crazy. I've waited 20 minutes here in this line. And she's apologizing, and she's got her head down, and she's sweating, and, processes this person at a blindingly fast speed in my book, and they leave. Well, I am not the most observant person in the world, but I had an event, an epiphany, one might say, where I had an opportunity to change a person's day. So I walk up, I've got the t-shirt in my hands. She goes, "Sorry it took so long." And then she reaches out and she grabs a hold of the t-shirt, but I don't let go of it. So she's kind of tugging at it. She can't really figure out what's going on. And I go, "It's been a tough day, huh? I've noticed that you're the only checkout in here." And I'm saying it loud enough that everybody else can hear. "Seems like you're having a really bad day." And she goes, "Yeah." And she's trying to tug at the t-shirt. And I said, it's really tough having to put up with all of these people coming in and talking to you. But I'm glad that you're here. And it seems that you're typing in all the numbers by yourself." She goes, "Yes." And she's kind of pulling at the t-shirt. And I said, "Well, thank you for doing what you're doing. If you weren't here, nobody'd be checking us out." And she goes, "Yeah." And kind of tugging at the t-shirt. And I said, "It's really tough doing this kind of work and having to put up with people's inane babble. But it gives you an opportunity to relax a little bit. Maybe compose yourself. Take a deep breath in, hold it for a few seconds, and then out again. Take a little mini break." And she had caught on by that point, and she let her hands drop from the t-shirt. She clasped them in front of her apron and took a deep breath in, and you could hear it, catching as she's hauling it in. And then smooth out. And then she opened her eyes, she looked at me, and I said, "Excuse me, I was wondering if you could help me. I'd like to buy this t-shirt for my wife. Could you process it for me?" She said, "I think I can do that." She grabbed it, typed in the number. The bill came out. I paid with my credit card. I said, "Thank you very much." She says, "Thank you." And I left. I could hear the person behind me walk up, and I glanced over my shoulder. She was processing it a little bit faster, but now she had a little bit of a smile on her face. I went out into the street. I couldn't see my wife anywhere, but I heard the person that was behind that one say, "You're doing a really good job," loud enough so that everybody in the line could hear. I felt I made an accomplishment that day. Not saying that I have that kind of insight every day, but that was 26 years ago, and I remember it to this day. I hope I can do it again sometime.
For obvious reasons, give it up one more time to Brian. That's beautiful. Full stop. This gentleman, by the way, said something once that, not 26 years ago, probably like 21 years ago, I was talking about revenge, that I've got a really for a long time I had a really vengeful spirit, which I eventually had let go of. I was telling him about something, and about revenge, and he said, that's a really long tail to carry around behind you and waiting for someone to step on it. And that gave me a perspective, which I needed at the time. So credit to him, and also great story. I'm always delighted when you come in from Toronto, and thank you. Okay. This is a really cool night. Everybody seems on a very cool level. Next person is someone I've almost introduced already. He's one of the bus people. Remember the bus people?
The bus people!
I love the bus people because the bus people are exactly what I really hope for. Someone shows up unexpectedly and finds something they like and comes back. I have no idea what they're going to talk about.
You've never said that
Never. I know, man. Do you know how depressing it is? Like, I watch the videos, keep thinking, I say the same thing over. I have to think of something else. And then realize, what I'm saying is kind of appropriate bit by bit. But when you watch yourself over and over again, it's not ego. It's sort of like, oh my God, I have to do better than this. Not that I'm not doing a wonderful job right now. Yes, please. You're too kind. But enough about me. What do you think about me? Get away from me entirely. John, here he is.
There we go. Can everyone hear me? Beautiful. So I'm not a very creative person, at least not as creative as my wife. But I came here tonight to tell a scary story, spooky story. It's that time of year. 'Tis the season, I guess you can say. So really, I'm really super interested in folklore, not just Canadian folklore, but world folklore. So I chose a Japanese tale tonight called Okiko and the Missing Dish. I adapted it a little bit. The Japanese narrative is a little bit different than the Western narrative. So one creative thing I did was reformat it as a bit of a campfire story. But other than that, I tried to keep the intention of the story to the original. So imagine a quiet night. The air is cool and the only light comes from the moon. Hanging pale over the white walls of Himeji Castle. Long ago, in the castle there lived a young servant girl named Okiko. She wasn't noble or wealthy, but she was known for her grace and beauty. Her job was to care for the Lord's most precious treasure, a set of 10 priceless porcelain dishes. Every day she had washed them carefully, counting them and putting them away. 1, 2, 3, all the way to 10. But lurking in the shadows of the castle was a man who watched with greedy eyes, a samurai named Aomi. He wanted Okiko for himself. He tried to charm her. He tried to bribe her. But Okiko was strong-willed, and every time she said no. Eventually, this obsession turned to rage. One night, Aomi crept into that very kitchen and stole one of the 10 dishes, hiding it away in his chambers. Then he called Okiko to him. "One of my lord's plates is missing," he said coldly. "I need you to count them." Akiko's hands trembled as she began. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Her face went pale. She began to count again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. She was still short. Her heart raced and her hands trembled. Losing a single dish meant death. Aomi leaned close to her and whispered in her ear, "If you become mine, I'll say nothing to our Lord. If not, then you will be punished for your crime." Even though she was facing death, Okiko still refused him. Furious, Aomi ordered her beaten with a wooden sword. He tied her up and suspended her over the castle walls and began a cruel torture. He dunked her into the icy, cold water of the well below. and dragging her back up, demanding that she submit to him. But Okiku never did. At last, in a fit of rage, Iomi struck her on the head with the sword and cut the rope. Okiku's body plunged into the black water of the well. There was a splash, and then complete silence. For many nights, everything in the castle seemed normal. But then, servants began to hear a soft and wet footstep in the halls after dark, and the sounds of dripping water. And then they would hear a voice. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And then a scream, a shriek so piercing it made blood run cold. Night after night, Okiku's ghost rose from the well, soaking and pale, wandering the castle halls, searching for her missing plate. Anyone who heard her counting grew sick with fear. Those unlucky enough to hear her finish to 9 often died. Iomi could no longer sleep. He grew pale and weak, haunted by her very voice every night. Desperate, the lord of the castle summoned a priest. One moonless night, the priest sat in the garden beside the well, chanting softly as he waited for her spirit to arrive. The air grew still and cold. The well began to ripple, and then she rose, Okiko's ghost, her long black hair hanging wet around her hollow eyes. She began her count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Before her scream could burst out, the priest shouted into the night, 10! The ghost stopped. Her eyes widened. For the first time, her face was soft. Someone had found her missing plate. Slowly, Okiku's spirit faded back into the well, and the waters stilled. From that night on, her voice was never heard in that castle again. But, some say, if you stand too close to the old well on a quiet night, and the wind is just right, you might hear 1, 2, 3. The end.
One more hand of applause, please. Where did you find that story?
So there's a collection, actually I forgot to give him a shout out. There's a collection called Tales from Ghostly Japan, written by Lucadio Hearn.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah,
That is not from that particular book, but that is one of the stories that he adapted, and you can find on the internet, just in general.
I knew a bunch of those stories. That I was listening to that thinking, this reminds me of childhood. I grew up in Toronto, in North York. There was a library there. They would do story time. For some reason, the guy who led story time had this really thick, it was a weird accent. It was kind of Australian and kind of French. I cannot possibly impersonate it. I will not insult this audience by doing it. But he would read those stories by Saki, whose actual name was Lafcadio Kern. So it sounded really familiar. You've brought me back to being a 4-year-old. No one does that, so thank you very much. It was a cool story. The next performer I have not seen before, and I'm going to apologize in advance because I'm sure I'm going to mess up his name. This gentleman is a chemist, and he has said outright that he would like to try out something that he hasn't done before. One more time, please. One more time. That is another example of something that is very dark and dense in the best sense of the term. You should keep writing that. Do you plan to publish that at some point?
Yeah, I'm getting some help about writing it. So eventually I hope so.
If that's unedited, like if you've written that, if you're reading that right out of your brain and that's not been edited, that's incredible. And also you're the second person I've ever met who's from Turkmenistan. I had a girlfriend from Turkmenistan who had a Russian name. Her name was Kitcha, which means kitten in Russian apparently.
East Turkestan.
Turkestan, sorry. The same region. That's incredible. Thank you for reading that. Thank you for being here. I had no idea where that was going to go from your introduction and from the rest of the story. That's wonderful. Thank you very much for doing that. Okay. And everybody here, we're almost at the end. Last person tonight, I haven't actually seen in the flesh for a while. He is primarily a stand-up, and full stop, he's cool. Every time I've seen him perform, his timing is effortless, and he makes it look easy. I don't know if he feels that way, but he always has. So I'm really happy I haven't seen him for a while. I'm really happy to have him tonight. No further ado, Yoel. Yoel, I'm sorry, Yoel.
After. Anyway, back to Mike Derbecker. I don't want to steal the show. Here you go.
Steal it. Ladies and gentlemen, Yoel. You've just proven my point in an entirely different way than I thought, because I said you've got amazing timing. That's amazing timing. It just wasn't what I thought you were going to talk about tonight, but damn, that was good. So everybody here, we have reached the end of the evening. I got to close. Yeah, good night. I'm not going to close anything significant other than everybody who's here, thank you for showing up. My next event here is going to be, my next storytelling event is going to be on November 7th, Friday, November 7th. I'm also doing a Readers Theater event on the 24th of October, where I've got a couple of actors and we are actually working off of scripts directly in front of the audience. Last one went very well. Anybody here, you're welcome to come. One more time, if you have performed tonight, if you want a video of your performance, please talk to Dex or to Jake over there. There's still some drinks. Everyone has showed up. This evening it went angles I could not have anticipated. Thank you for being here. Hope you had a great time, and good night. Woo.
We got pizza.